We'll call this October 15 Brown County Commission meeting to order. Commissioner Kipling, would you lead the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
First item on the agenda, we have the Brown County Comprehensive Plan.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'll just give you kind of a quick rundown of how we got here, and I'll open it up for any questions. This is a hearing that you had published in the paper to adopt the comprehensive plan that the Planning Commission has recommended to you. About last year, we started working through this document with the Planning Commission. We started by going through your old document, page by page, talking about the things that you like, you dislike, things that wanted to be added. Through that discussion and from the guidance, I put together somewhat of a rough draft, working with Scott, working with Scott Mattson on some of the maps, working with Gary, who had some roles in this, so a lot of different people who have been involved. After that, we came back with a rough draft to the Planning Commission and made a few more changes to it. At that time, then the Planning Commission held a public hearing and did the official recommendation to you, and that kind of brings us up to where we are today. The plan kind of kept a similar format to where you were, but we condensed some things and generally just updated it because it was from the early 1980s. You are required to have what's a comprehensive plan, or what's called a land use plan, to enforce your zoning regulations, and so that's part of your need to have that current. So I don't know if you all have copies of that. I think Rachel's looking at it
Yeah,
online.
if you guys go online, it's
so.
under the planning and zoning. I've got it there. Otherwise, I think there was a copy. Did we have a copy in our deal? Or just the resolution?
No, there wasn't one in there. Probably.
I can certainly pass mine around if you
There wasn't
want.
one in there.
What, is today the final or this first reading, or what's the?
You're only required to do one public hearing. State law says hearing or hearings. We usually recommend one. I've had counties who do more than one. So your choice today is if you choose to, you can adopt it by resolution. Kathy has a copy of the resolution that you can sign. If you do that and it's approved, she will then publish the resolution along with the minutes, and a notice of adoption next Wednesday is the plan. And then it would be effective 20 days after that if not referred, and so it would be effective on November 12th if we stick to all those days.
And the one on the website was first and second reading.
And
It's
no
not
change.
updated to the just first reading.
We had our state convention when the zoning board took it up in September. Did they have any recommended changes, or is this still in its original format?
This is, we had some changes from when I was there. At the meeting that I wasn't able to attend, which was state convention, they approved it at that time.
Okay.
With no changes.
And it stays fairly general. It starts out with a little history of the county and that type of thing. I read through the entire thing on Sunday.
Yeah. Fairly general in terms of where things are. You know, it's updating all your demographics from housing to population, farm statistics, economics, and from there it gets into the goals and objectives and what you're looking to do. And they need to match up with where your
Yep.
zoning is. And so if you get into a point where you start updating your zoning, you'll want to make certain then that, you know, if this document says we're pro wind tower as an example, and in your ordinance you say we don't want anything to do with wind towers, then you have a problem. And so we'll just want to make certain as you do that in the future that the two are working hand in hand. And I can certainly get into far more detail if you'd like me to, but I wasn't sure that's where you wanted me to go.
It looks like it's more or less just like history and demographics and all that type of thing is what I just looked through.
Primarily, it's showing where you currently are and where you think you're going to go, and then it's doing goals and objectives to match up to that.
Population history,
Trending,
the surrounding
projections.
counties.
Yep, that's
That's
Brown County, and
and
what's surrounding you to show, you know, what you're dealing with for demographics. Everybody around you is essentially losing population because it's slowly increasing. And then it has, and I guess I didn't mention, it has a number of environmental issues from, you know, what floodplains are and soil conditions and other issues associated with that, obviously.
Well, I tried to read through most of it on my iPhone, but
That would be a little bit more challenging.
but I got through it pretty good. But I do like the hard copy for sure.
No, as I said, I went through it on Sunday with a big screen.
You'd need a magnifying glass.
No.
That helps for the maps and the tables and
Yep.
and the graphs, which would be a little bit tough to do on a small phone.
I would entertain a motion to accept the Brown County Comprehensive Plan.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Weiss, second by Pikert, to adopt a resolution for the Brown County Comprehensive Plan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for your work on that.
Next item, we have the first reading of ordinance 148, Roger Gray rezone, and 149, Randy Bacon rezone.
We'll do 148 first. Roger Gray, he's requesting to go from Agricultural Preservation District to Lakefront Residential. And it's got two physical addresses, 379268 and 379290 South Shore Drive.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Weaves, second by Kepley, to authorize the first reading of ordinance 148, the Roger Gray rezone. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We have ordinance 149. This is from Randy Bacon. He's proposing to go from Agricultural Preservation District to Lakefront Residential. And then his addresses would be 379224 and 379252 South Shore Drive.
I would move that.
Second.
Moved by Pikert, second by Weaves, to authorize the first reading of rezone 149, Randy Bacon rezone. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We got just a few minutes back if we want to do a couple of years.
Yeah, we have general meeting minutes from October 8th. Move it.
Second. Moved by Kepley, second by Feldheim, to approve the general meetings for October 8th. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Claims and payroll.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Pikert, second by Kepley, to approve claims and payroll. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
HR report.
Move.
Second. Moved by Weaves, second by Pikert, to approve the HR report. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Sheriff's report.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Weaves, second by Kepley, to approve the sheriff's report for September. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Interesting reading.
There's a lease.
I move the lease.
Second.
Moved by Kepley, second by Weiss, to approve the lease.
Moonlight Fellowship, I think was right.
They borrowed a
Yeah.
stage for an event.
Oh, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Claim assignment.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Weiss, second by Kepley, to approve the claim assignment. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's everything we have.
Gary, is there anything that you got for that today? Okay. I guess I think we're within about a half minute of our next item. It'd be Scott Bader, Planning and Zoning Office Update. Scott, you had handed some information out. I believe Erica was going to be here too. Is Erica in the... San Antonio, Texas. San Antonio, Texas, I believe. No, unless I don't know one where the airport, North Dakota. Where is that one? I don't know where that one's at, but the one that Derek's going to San Antonio. I couldn't figure out.
Oh, this one here is in Aberdeen.
Oh, that one's in Aberdeen, okay. Okay.
You still have that
There we go.
comprehensive plan
Yeah,
floating around?
that's the big request.
Been on the corner over this.
Yep, I've got it here.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the questions we had was last week, Erica, you were checking with Nancy to see if there was an option for more hours, am I correct?
Correct, yes. And I asked her about the full-time piece of it, and she said she was not willing to do full-time. She wanted to stay part-time.
Okay.
Yep.
Kind of the same hours that she currently has, or
Correct.
that kind of what we were up,
Correct.
okay. So that answers that question, that was the
Okay.
thing that kind of carried over from last week.
I asked her before, budget request also.
Okay. So Scott, you had put together some information for us to review as commissioners as far as what the new 3 mile is going to mean, and I see you've got additional calls and people. I guess that was the puzzle. We have no idea what that's going to involve, and I don't know that we're going to know that until we get a year down the road what's going to happen. But anyway, I'll let you take over at that point.
Well, I just gave approximate numbers, going back and reviewing items, and I anticipate this to increase next year. Everything was kind of a confusion to the people. So these numbers, we took care of quite a few people before July 16th also, and so I'd say this is June, probably starting the month of June, and then I just did a basic recap of the hours, workable hours in the department, and then I put together just a hypothetical, Nancy and a full-time and myself, as far as items worked on. So then throughout the rest, just kind of explaining some of the items that we do a little more in depth.
Can you talk a little bit more about that floodplain regulation, the CRS program? That kind of caught my attention.
The CRS?
Yeah.
FEMA has a program, a community, whether it's county or municipality, if they're willing to sign up. It includes a lot more documentation, but they also have a couple more items that you would be required to do. But the main thing is just enforcing the regulations according to the ordinance or FEMA regulations. What happens is if you sign up as a level 10 and 9, you'll start out at like a 5% discount. The people of your jurisdiction. When you get up to a level 1, it's 40 or 45%. And obviously level 1 would be more work and documentation, but the thing that we had on the confusion side is our maps that we previously had in 2010. It wasn't, 2008 and 2010, it wasn't caught that the jurisdictional area for Brown County's floodplain would be from city limits of Aberdeen and then out. And the map shows the joint jurisdictional area as being Aberdeen's jurisdiction. So when you go and you tabulate the number of people that it would affect, we have like 36 houses, which is not correct, because it's not including any of the 3 mile area.
So does the city go by this?
They just
CRS?
signed up with it too.
They just signed up with it?
I'm gonna say 6 to 8 months ago. And they started out with a level 8, I think it is, 8 or 9. So it'll be like 5 or 10% discount on your premiums for flood insurance. It's a pretty good program if the entity does the program for the people to save the cost of insurance. It doesn't matter what agent you go to, the prices of flood insurance are on a chart from FEMA, so they're following that. So then when they give a discount, that would also follow suit.
Do you have an idea of the number of homes impacted?
No, it's probably over 100. There's an awful lot in the 3 Mile area. You know, and then like Prairie Wood wasn't included in our area, and that whole community is in the floodplain, unless they did a letter of map revision. We could figure out a number for that.
Well, there's no doubt in my mind that we need a full-time person in the office. I just wasn't sure if it was a full-time person plus Nancy's 20 to 30 hours, so we're almost looking at 3 full-time people. Because I know that you started a folder of things we want to work on, and I was hoping whoever we get in that position, whether it be Nancy or somebody else, could do the day-to-day stuff, so that you could work on those, you know, like working with NECOG to do some ordinance changes and things like that. So I guess that's just kind of what I struggle with a little bit, is what is the right number of hours, and so that says a lot if Nancy's not willing to do any more than half-time. Do we hire another full-time, and can that person do some of the typing and stuff that Nancy's currently doing as well as what you're looking at here? Or do we look at a temporary, just because I feel like some of that stuff, once we get it in order, it'll be less work for you, but it's just a work in progress. So I guess that's...
Well, and one of the big items that I hear from people when they make comments is, like, from 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock, like if I'm at a meeting, there's no one down there.
Sure.
Or in our office, I shouldn't say down there, it was always back there. But,
Yeah.
And then Fridays are the same way. So the full-timer is better than just having a part-time, definitely, as far as customers.
Do you see an increase in activity going into the spring versus with the city, with us being or having the responsibility of all the zoning in the 3 mile limit now? Do you see maybe more activity in the spring than what we've seen this fall? Possibly your numbers might be different if we were going from the spring into the summer rather than from the fall into the winter.
Right.
Just curious.
Your spring is always heavy, and your fall is always heavy, trying to get things in, you know, before winter.
Right, or get going in the spring.
And then permitting kind of drops off kind of in the middle of the summer, which is strange, but when I worked at the city years ago, it was like that inside the city also, on the permitting.
Makes sense. Well, I too think that you're probably definitely in need of another full-time person, and I can't imagine that you know, trying to run the office without some type of secretarial help in there, that would work real well without someone there. So I guess I'd support, you know, trying to get another person on staff.
And Nancy has done a great job with the monthly project folders, putting that stuff together and getting the letters out, and there's a lot more that we can kind of focus on as time goes on.
So if we were to, just thinking out loud, go through a full-time planning zoning tech, could Nancy be moved to like a part-time temporary at like 4 hours a day or something like that, just for the secretarial part of it, to do like the packets, your zoning meetings? She's kind of working with all that now, isn't she?
Well, she just started in the last few months of kind of transitioning into that stuff. But that's what she does, 4 hours a day, Monday through Thursday, and then it can be up to 28.
She's part-time temporary, so right now she would just be at that
She was
not
approved
the-
for 25,
Yes.
Okay.
as temporary.
What does she currently put in for hours right now?
Is it 11 to 5 is what she works?
Right.
Okay.
Monday through Thursday.
So 24 hours?
Well, that's why I was saying, if we were to back that down to like 16 hours, you know, and that would be kind of her cap, you know, that would give you some secretarial duties that, and the reason I say temporary part-time, once you get your tech up and running and he gets more knowledge, you know, maybe that position terminates in 6 months or a year, and you've got just the two down there. That's kind of where I was going with that.
Feel the position out before you terminate somebody and then decide you needed another person there. Okay.
You know, I don't know what Nancy's thoughts are on that. I mean, you probably have a better feel for that if, you know.
Well, the two of you could structure those 16 hours,
Right,
whether it be
3 days a week, or, you know, I realize she drives in, so, you know, driving in every day for 4 hours gets less cost efficient for her, but if you gotta do 3 hours and increase her hours to 6 hours for 3 days, I mean, I think that's negotiable at that point, but I think it's whatever works in your schedule, you know. I guess I'm just looking at that as, I know when you hire somebody new and you gotta train, and it gets to be kind of a rocky road for 6 months, and if you lose your support person doing that stuff that's important, but yet it's secretarial more than it is for planning and zoning, I think there's a value there.
You have a couple considerations. You're trying to cover hours, so there's somebody that's, you know, can answer the phone and take walk-in inquiries and things like that, and there's specific responsibilities and duties that need to be done on a timely basis.
And at one point, we had talked about a few of these things going to other departments. Is that still in the mix, or no? We had talked about GIS picking up, what was it, addressing?
Yeah.
Have we had further conversations on that? Gary, is Scott Matson willing to take up some addressing? The 911
I
address?
guess you'd have to ask him. I know, you know, once we decided that I was gonna be doing it, then that kind of discussion went away, but I think he'd certainly be able to do it if but it's probably something you need to talk more about to him.
I was
He
under
has
the
did it
impression...
in the past.
Oops, go ahead.
He has did it in the past, but
Okay. You were under the impression what?
I was just under the impression that we were moving forward with all of the same.
Everything coming back to you? Because that's an option too, I mean, if we decide there's other things that go other places, or... But no, I like your idea. Hire her full-time, see where we're at in 6 months to a year, and maybe Nancy will just have to keep her current hours a few more until we get that person hired to cover any lapses. You know, Eric from NECOG's here, maybe they would be willing to help us out with doing some of that ordinance writing. You said there was other counties that you've helped do some of that stuff?
Currently working with 5 or 6 of them at the moment.
Okay. What's the process? Do we get on a wish list of come to us next?
I'd kind of like to wait, but I can get started sooner if we need to. I'm wrapping a couple of them up here within the next probably 3 to 4 months. Real question is what you're wanting to do. You'll eliminate some staff time, but it's not going to be significant unless a planning commissioner or county commissioner is going to step forward. Somebody's got to be the point person on those. I mean, there's a lot of things when I'm doing the comprehensive plan, whether I'm pulling ag statistics or census statistics, I can do all that on my own. We get into a CAFO ordinance and we're talking about, you know, changes to that. I can show you all kinds of different examples, things we can do, but somebody's got to tell me what direction we're heading and, and take the time. The planning commission ultimately is where that needs to originate at. You can do something different with it before it gets to them, but they're going to have a lot of time into that as well. So their schedule or whoever you're having to work with is going to be, you know, really a question of time on that.
And I think that piece, that CAFO piece and the change in the ordinance of what we've talked about in the past, we've had a lot of conversations on, and I'm sure you've got binders house full of, but I think we had a proposal of what we were considering changing those numbers to, right, Scott? So
A chart for small, rural agricultural parcels smaller than 40 acres.
So maybe that would be, excuse me, a good starting point, is to show her what we were thinking, how that compares to other counties, and then at some point have an open forum meeting, maybe in conjunction with our planning, so that the public has some input into that proposal. So you're not starting from scratch, is what I'm saying.
Well,
We've put some thought into where we want to be.
And we do a number of different things with that. We have some where they've had the same ordinance for 40 years. They have a zoning officer who's new, and they just start from scratch, and we just start over on their ordinances. You're not in that situation. You know what's in there. The question is, are you looking to redo? Are you looking to go section by section, make updates to the whole document? Are you just looking at changing one or two sections? Quite honestly, we can price it down and within a couple hours go through what you have and look at options and things, so that may give a better idea. Are there more things that you discover that you want, or you may say, I think we're good where we're at, we just need to update, you know, some language here and there.
So is that something then that could be put on a planning and zoning agenda? Something that should start at a planning and zoning meeting probably, and just kind of a review of maybe some point things that we might be concerned about that are in the current ordinance, maybe some cleanup of what you mentioned as far as the small operations and how they are tied on to how it affects the bigger CAFO operations. I think there was some concerns in that, and I'm wondering if that shouldn't start at a planning and zoning meeting on the agenda some evening after a regular meeting. I don't know.
And I think it has. I think a couple of years ago we had it on the agenda a couple times. The danger without having some firm document that we're considering is that meeting's going to be endless. Everybody's going to come with different proposals, whereas if we have one that we kind of are looking at, this is what we're considering, so that comments can be addressed to that particular proposal instead of a dozen different...
So who does that?
I think Scott's got something that we had talked about a couple of years ago that would be a good base point.
On the feedlot stuff in the chart, and then there's also the administrative part needs to be updated immensely to coincide with state statutes for publishing and stuff.
So has that been laid in front of the Planning and Zoning Board? Oh, okay.
One of the challenges when I have planning commissions and board of adjustments, which are separate from county commission, if you're making decisions saying you want to do something, and then you tell the planning commission to do it, do they know what you want done? And I've had a number of times where we meet as planning commission for a number of meetings, and then we come back to the county commission, they say, well, that's not what we wanted. And so I like having those boards separate, but as a board, you're going to need to give them some guidance and say, this is what we want, otherwise we may spend a bunch of time and bring it back to you, and that's not what you were looking for. So that can be done in a number of ways. I know Rachel sits on that, and so whether that's coming back and providing updates to the county commission, what's being done, whether I need to come in and do that, whether you guys, even attend a planning commission meeting on occasion so you can see where that process is. It's just making certain that you're all on the same page. Planning commission technically needs to do the updates and recommend it to the county commission, but you're the MPA on that.
It needs to be consistent with what the commission intends.
Just like this comprehensive plan, if I show up and you say, well, this is nothing that we wanted, well, now we're starting over again, and you're sending something back to the planning commission, telling them to do what with that. And so that to me is just, if you know where you're going with it, it makes it a lot easier in that process.
Yeah, and we've had discussions at the planning commission meetings on certain aspects like the administrative part. We didn't use hard copy. Just talked about some changes at the state level that took place in 2006, and we should look at some of that stuff, and then the feedlot stuff. We also looked at some minor changes in the zoning labels, chapters, but nuisance complaints, that's a chapter on its own, but planning and zoning oversees it. So several items, and we've looked and talked about a lot of that stuff. It's a matter of putting it together. When I was at the city, they hired a independent firm to do redo their ordinance, and then when they were done, then each department would go through it you know, and if they wanted something changed or whatever, then they'd recommend that change. But when it was all said and done, a lot of it was redone, you know, by the departments. They even left out snow removal. They had to do an emergency adoption of snow removal because they couldn't tow any vehicles and stuff because the company from Texas didn't put that in the ordinance. You know, so there's things that departments are going to pay attention to where the company might not. But Eric, I mean, being from around here, that's definitely a plus.
You can't just give it to somebody. You still have to participate. You have to make decisions about what's going on. You have to be able to make decisions.
Yeah, that's the real key for me. If you say update it, bring it back next meeting, I can bring something back for you, but whether or not you like what it's going to say is a different issue. So.
Well, there's a variety of different things, you know, involved with the CAFO side of things. You know, how do you want to, you know, first thing is you got to make it consistent with what current state requirements are, and then do you want to go above and beyond, and do you want to do, you know, before or after state permitting, or is state permitting going to be enough? And where do you put the floor on some of the things? I believe ours pretty much goes from 0 up, ground up, which is not current standards of where you need to be with those kinds of things, because it's just getting way too deep in the weeds.
And
as far as numbers are concerned.
Yeah, there's nothing that I can bring you that says, here's what most people are doing.
Right.
When it comes to the CAFO, it is all over the board in terms of where that is, and every county is entirely different.
Well, even within the state, and then you go to other states, you've got dairy's a different deal, you've got, you know, all of the different kinds of livestock, and it's, you know, we've got a fair number of, you know, pigs and some cattle finishing and things like that. So I think it deserves a look, and then I know that you've got things just where there's updating in terms of what, you know, current verbiage and terminology, you know, consistent with what the state recognizes, things like the difference between a special exception and permitted use type of things, which actually you can go through and identify and highlight and say, this term's got to go, what do you want to replace it with, or do you want to change more around it, type of thing. But yeah, it takes people to sit down and walk through it that are, you know, in a position to make those decisions and say, this is where I think it needs to go, and then we present it and review it.
And you take just an ag district, what you have as a permitted use and what you have as conditional use. You may have things that right now are permitted that, well, maybe we should be taking a closer look at conditional use. And you may have others in conditional use. Why are we asking somebody to come in, have a public hearing, pay a fee, we'd be okay with it just being permitted? You may not even have things that are listed there that maybe should be in that. So there's just a lot of that where, I mean, I can provide it, but I don't know what you want to do with that. So that ends up just on permitted and conditional use, maybe a half-hour discussion on each district. Should these things move? Are there things missing? And that's a really simple discussion to have, and it's not very controversial in most cases. Admin's a really easy section to do. There's a couple of decisions that you'll have to make as to how you want that set up.
It's probably a good place to start, so you kind of get things moving that direction and so forth. But yeah, there's things that, you know, you didn't anticipate several decades ago. I recall that our ordinances weren't real clear on how we would handle the big stone power line when it came through, and they were trying to get permits and working with setbacks and those type of things.
Yeah, there's so many components, whether we're looking at things, we can look to put an administrative manual together for you, which helps for staff in terms of checklists and your applications and have all that together. Maybe you want to review your building permit fees, you're talking about adding a staff, and so that may be, you know, part of it. Looking at doing bylaws for your board of adjustments, so they have a set structure of how they're going to handle meetings and being consistent about that, which helps with potential lawsuits when they come up. And so there's a lot of different things that we can do alongside of this, and they all kind of work hand in hand in terms of where that's at.
So at what point then, as this thing is rewritten, they want to go through the hearing process then too, because not everything can be changed by resolution. If we go at what, I guess, how deep into this thing do we go when we start publishing so that the people have the opportunity to have input?
So you have a number of different ways you could handle that. I would recommend doing all changes at one time. And then what you're doing is the Planning Commission has to hold a public hearing and recommend, and then as county commissioners, you'll end up holding 2 public hearings, and we'll do it as a full revision of your document. You can go through and do section by section. The problem is you might update section 1, then when you get to section 5, it changes something back in section 1. You're going to be coming back and changing that again, especially if you get into definition issues. And you may have changes throughout the whole document. So my suggestion is I would do it as a whole, unless you have an issue that comes up. If you know you're going to have a cable problem 6 months from now, you may want to just update that now if you know what it is, and we'll update that section, and then we'll come back and do the whole thing. But if you don't have anything that's pressing or it has to be done, I would do the whole thing in its entirety and adopt it that way.
And it's still something the planning commission can work through on an attrition basis. It just doesn't go to
Yeah.
official approval of adoption until they've gone through all the individual pieces. So they can take it a bite at a time, but we don't actually bring it here and adopt the entire thing unless there's something that, is pressing. But allow them to take it a bite at a time, and we're aware of it, and if we get any direction or...
That'd be my
influence.
recommendation, to handle it that way. Because there are always sections where you thought you were done with it, you change something later on, and you realize it's now conflicting with what you did earlier, and you have to go back and do something with it.
Yeah, and it's relatively autonomous, but we did actually update our fees several months ago.
Okay. Yeah, and I always leave those out of your documents, so you can do it by resolution, so
Right.
you're not having to go through that process again, but...
In your opinion, Scott, since we inherited 3 Mile, is there a lot of ordinances that need to be changed, or are we going to be, for lack of better words, generic to where they're at now versus what we've inherited?
I think there's a couple that could be addressed to kind of even out the differences, you might say.
Well, we're not looking at changing all our ordinances. There's some highlighted ordinances like GAFU's, probably nuisance. I understand we have no teeth whatsoever in our nuisance laws. If somebody's violating, we basically don't have any teeth to enforce anything. Am I correct when I state that? Say,
It depends on if the sheriff department, the deputy gets involved, and then him working with the state, and how many animals are on the site and things like that.
I'm talking about nuisance laws like people having excess stuff in right-of-ways that won't move it. We don't have any means to enforce any of that.
Well, yes.
Say that out loud.
And I think your nuisance ordinance is a separate ordinance separately as well from the zoning. I guess
Yeah.
that becomes different in terms of regulations.
Mhm.
That's chapter 14, and zoning is chapter 4, or title 4. We worked on preparing for the joint jurisdictional area to work together with Aberdeen, so I was working on putting together a joint ordinance at that time, and I think about 4 to 6 months that we were working on that stuff. So, even with some of that, there was discussion at the planning commission level. And a lot of that information would be part of this ordinance also. We won't be doing the joint anymore, but a lot of that information would be part of this one.
The most productive way to do it is just maybe we pick up those meetings that we did and have a work group that works through each issue weekly, and then give that update to your board and see where they're at, if any tweaks need to be made, and I'm willing to be
Like
done.
with Eric, I think we, maybe hit the administrative part and then get that up to date, and it just kind of is done, I guess, and then go on to the other parts, and then if you have to make a change, and then as you get to a certain level, then like the nuisance part or that could go on its own. We might want to redo wind towers. We might be okay with what we have. The solar, we don't have anything in our ordinance for solar, and that's becoming a big item. So that would need to be added. So there's just, it's 30 years old, or, and then there's been a couple updates of things here and there, but not totally gone through, so.
Well, we can be assured as this settles in that we're going to start addressing some of this stuff, and not really a timeline, but kind of a schedule a priority list of this, however long it takes. But to get those things done, because it does need to get done, then I'm okay with it.
Do you need a motion?
Go ahead, yeah.
I would move we go ahead and authorize advertising for a full-time position within the Planning and Zoning Department. And then, as far as Nancy's hours, keep them just as they are throughout the month of October, but then maybe look at backing those down from the 24 to 16 in November or whenever we're able to get that full-time person.
I'll second Rachel's motion. We have a motion by Kipley, we have a second by Piker to authorize hiring a full-time planning and zoning tech and leaving our part-time person on for now. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Yeah, and I think as time goes on, we're gonna have an end result of what kind of work is added with that 3-mile area, and
I don't know that it needs to be treated a whole lot different than the rest of the county at this point.
no, I'm just saying like the extra permitting and plats and...
Yeah, we've already seen some of the additional activity, and that's just part of doing business from now on.
Yeah, and I think they said that they only do like 40 permits a year, and I've already seen 30 in 3 months, so I think that number will be higher than 40 for a year.
Well, good.
And I think plats were like 11.
Okay.
I think we've probably done half of that in 3 months.
Well, let's get this addressing responsibility deal resolved so we can move forward too.
Want to do with it?
All right. Okay.
Addressing, I'd like, just, can I bring that up?
Sure.
I assume that I'm still doing addressing.
Do you want it in your office, or would it help to go somewhere else with it?
Would it, yeah, I mean, would it
I
be
mean,
better done somewhere in another office,
one
or?
last thing, or?
No, I think we need more conversation about it, because if we're gonna push it someplace or pull it from someplace, we need to talk to Scott and a couple other people involved with it, but I would just assume
I don't have a
get together
problem
with them
keeping
and
it.
bring it to us what the best solution is.
What's that?
I would prefer that you and Scott and the other people that it impacts have the conversation, put a plan together, and come to us with the solution, rather than us trying to dictate it from here.
So at this point, I would still be doing addressing until further notice.
That's what we're doing right now, but it still impacts what goes on with it.
That's not what's happening right now.
Okay,
That's
well,
why I'm asking.
Well, that's why I'm asking it. I don't think it's really clear right now, and I don't know that we need to be dictating what it is without getting more input on it.
It's a planning and zoning duty,
Right.
and it has been for years.
Well, I think you work directly with Scott Matson as far as the addressing, don't you? I mean, that's part of the whole process, is that right?
Used to.
Well, there's
Yeah.
resources and so forth,
Yeah.
so that connection needs to be brought back together.
I guess if we're bringing a full-time person on, is there any reason we want to pull it out of planning and zoning if it's something that duty can be handled within planning and zoning? I think that was our whole intent of why we're hiring somebody full-time. It wasn't to bring somebody on full-time and start pushing the work someplace else. It makes no sense to me if we're going to do that.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to push it, I'm just trying to get it done efficiently.
Yeah.
However, if putting a couple things into different departments means we alleviate the part-time person, we can look at that next year.
Well, I think that's
That was my
discussion down the road.
question.
I guess that would depend on time factor, if you're able to keep up with the addressing. I think a lot of it depends in the next 6 months, how this is all gonna shake out with the full-time person, and
Right.
if Nancy's hours go down to 16, is everything able to be maintained and everything's done adequately? I think that's what we're trying to do for the public, is make sure they got adequate access to planning and zoning. So, let's just kinda put that on the burner for now, and
Yep. But that's one of the pieces that we need to continue to do.
Thank you,
Sounds
Scott.
good. Input on, so.
Thank you,
All right.
Erica.
Thank you.
Next item, we
And Eric,
have
thank you
Sheila
too.
Anderson with Treasurer and Personnel. 9 o'clock, we're a little late, Sheila.
Well, this is my last time.
It's
here
Jerry's
with
fault
you.
you're late, so.
Is this,
I'm
gonna be
presenting
involved?
my formal resignation
Okay.
effective at midnight, November 15th.
Okay.
And I can tell you that I'm leaving you in good hands. Patty's been with me for 27 years. She knows lots more than I do. And her and Doreen both, and all of the staff are just phenomenal. And I'm sure that they'll easily take over the new computer system and all the things that I don't want to do anymore. I'm just tired. It's 43 years for me. It's a long time. I want to travel to Estonia to see my grandson and have a conversation with my sewing machine and do some of those things. So I'm resigning and leaving you in really good hands. You don't have to worry. You don't have to worry. She hasn't been mad since she walked in 27 years ago. I call her Pollyanna sometimes, but she's very good, and all of my staff is wonderful. So I know that and I've told them they can call me if there's any problems with tax deeds or things that are a little difficult to get through. I'll be able to give advice at no charge.
Only
Thank you,
43
Sheila.
years though? I mean,
43
don't you want to
years.
make it like a round number?
That's round. 43 is round.
Round it out.
But thank you for your always
Sheila.
backing me and
Okay.
being such good friends too. I appreciate it. It's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate all the service.
Well, you enjoy your retirement.
I
That's the
will.
main part of it.
Are you sure you're going to hang around?
Oh, yeah.
Are you
I will.
All right, thanks guys.
Thank you.
That takes care of our last agenda item. Anything else to come before the commission this morning?
I need a short exec
Okay, for,
legal contract.
we have a motion, or we need a motion to go into exec for legal.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Kempley, second by Luis to go into exec for legal. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are in exec. We are out of exec. No action as a result. Anything else to come before the commission?
Oh, I have just one quick thing.
Oh.
Legal Women Voters is having their luncheon October 22nd. So all county department heads and officials are invited to attend. So if you haven't RSVP'd, I sent out an email this morning with the email to send your RSVP.
Sounds great.
Is there a time on that?
Yeah.
11:30.
11:30, and it's here in the community room.
A week from now. Okay.
I had a motion adjourned by Kempley.
Second.
Second by Fikert. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.